Hey, hi, welcome back to No Way, Tell Me Everything. My name is Jess, and I am joined today by Anna, who I met back in 2017 at a women's leadership conference for the ad agency that we both worked at. And we really quickly bonded. I feel like we were kind of similar age, where there were a lot of older women at the conference. So maybe that was kind of what we gravitated towards each other. I can't remember, or we were in a group or something, but we very quickly found a lot of similarities with what we had kind of lived in the ad agency life. And when we did a vision board exercise, which was my first foray, I believe, into manifestation, that was like the first time I had heard of it. But we did a vision board exercise, and I was actually thinking about this because I follow you on LinkedIn and all your lovely success that you've found, that I feel like we actually kind of are where our vision boards said we wanted to be. You know, I had all these pictures of like Bali and yoga and wellness and peace and quiet, which was so not the advertising agency, but that was my vision board. And yours was like, I'm going to have my own company. I'm going to be doing this type of work. I'm going to be independent. And yeah, I just actually think that's really beautiful that we did. And I usually say vision boards don't really work, but I guess they kind of do in this case.
Apparently they do. Yeah. Apparently.
So anyway, welcome.
Thank
I'm
you.
so happy that you agreed to join. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
My name is Anna. I'm the founder of an ad agency called Schmack. I live in Stockholm. The agency has offices in 3 different countries, so I travel a lot. 10 weeks ago, I got my first baby. Her name is Maxine.
Congratulations.
She's very cute. So it has kind of shifted my priorities and the way that I live my life. And I think that this started, like this whole life that I'm living right now started post-conference. It's a before and after this conference. I don't think that the conference itself was that spectacular. Like
No, it was very lip servicey. It was like, hey, we're going to bring you all here because you're future leaders, but we're not actually going to do anything with it. We're just going to talk to you about stuff and have you do vision boards.
Yeah, and then nothing happened. Like it wasn't any any follow-ups
As usual.
after that. But I think that is the 2017 was like a pivotal year for me. I got engaged with my husband, and I started to I attended a wedding. Okay, I'm just gonna start to talk.
Yeah, do, please.
The question was, who are you? And now I'm just going into it.
Girl, I am a complete rambler. Everyone who listens to this knows that I ramble, so please ramble. It's the magic. Go ahead.
Okay, go. That was also one of the exercises. Do you remember? At the conference that we were given, I think it was 9 minutes, and then you should talk about what you want in your life. And you should speak as fast as you can so your subconscious can't keep up. Or like you let your subconscious go, kind of. It was very interesting. Anyway,
I think I probably didn't have any problem with that, but yeah, I don't remember that at all.
It wasn't even an exercise for you, yeah. But it was, I attended a wedding in 2017, and I looked at all of these people, and I realized that, wow, I can see their lives. Like I can see where they're going to be in 10 years. They're going to follow this path of having a good job, probably corporate, having a few children, living kind of the same life that their parents have led. And I was like, I know I don't want this. So I sat down with my engaged fiance, the fiance, and I was like, I need something more. I want to create something. And I started to run half marathons, cold showers, read books about self-discipline, self-development. And based on that whole kind of shift in I can do everything, it's just a matter of mindset, here I am.
How old were you then? Do you remember?
10 years younger, so 27.
That's pretty incredible, actually, because I feel like most people are not at that headspace around 27. Still still figuring yourself out what you want thing. Like that is pretty internal personal strength wise, that's a pretty crazy drive that you had. But obviously, I mean, I think that was one of the things that I really liked you because I'm also very driven. And even though there's a part of me that feels like maybe things aren't, possible for me or that the worst will always happen, that I'm working on getting rid of all of that now. I have been for years. But even though I had that part, I still consciously and confidently was like, I'm not settling. I'm always going to go after it. And I feel like that was something that we talked a lot about back then. And what I really liked about you was that I can't remember her name. Was her name Debbie or Deborah or something? There was one woman in our group where we had to talk about each other. Remember? We had to say something nice about each other. And we had only spent the weekend together. It wasn't like we worked together every day and knew each other, right? We just met at that conference. And I remember saying something along the lines of like, I admired how strong you were and how determined, and that I just knew that you were not going to be one of those people who just sat around and settled, that you were going to do really big things and that you were going to be like really successful in it. And I remember her being like, wow, like you two, like we're really supportive of each other in that conversation. And I think that when, and we're not, I don't have to name the ad agency, but that place is a cesspool, horrible place, especially for women. And I feel like when I saw on LinkedIn that you had started your own thing, I was like, that is amazing, because that was something I had never even considered. I always thought I would, which is what I did. I would just go somewhere else, right? I was like, I'll go somewhere else and climb the ladder. And I think that I always thought you would just do that. You would find a better place and you would climb that ladder. So when you went out completely on your own, I was like, that took some fucking bravery. That's amazing. And then, yeah, following you through the years as you've like created this, and you have such a strong, confident way of talking about it, which I fucking love, because I feel like
Thank you.
women in the business world, it's always like, oh, she's too confident. Don't be so bitchy. I mean, women in the world in general, it's like, don't be proud of yourself. Don't talk strongly about your accomplishments. It puts people off. It's not great. And I feel like
But
you've
it does.
completely bucked that rule. Yeah, but I love that you stand in it, because I always say that. I'm like, are people going to not like some of the things I say? Sure. Are people going to think that I'm braggy or bold or conceited or whatever? Sure. I know I'm not. So it doesn't bother me. But that's, I think, something that we women have to do. And so there have to be some of us that start doing it, you know?
Thank you. It is difficult. It's one of the most difficult things because you get into a room and people underestimate you a lot. I started this agency with my husband who he's really good. He knows leadership. He is a salesperson by heart. He can walk into a room and people will look at him, expect him to know the answers. He doesn't necessarily know exactly what we're doing. Like I am the competence and he is kind of the leadership and management type of guy. But people want him on projects because he's a guy. Or they like his energy. It could be that too. But it's too many times where people are like, so Seb, what do you think? He's like, what Anna says,
Mm.
what she knows, because she knows this. And it is very different. And I've noticed that a lot of people, I've lost a lot of friends during this as well. Not necessarily good friends, but people that were around you when you started. And they were like giving you likes in the beginning. They were like, okay, good for you, trying it out. And then it started to go good, like good for me. I hired new people. I expanded to another market. The likes started to not happen anymore. And
Mm.
I can reach out to them now and be like, hi, do you want to grab coffee? No, not really. It's
Mm.
just like people don't want it to go, it could go ish well for you, but not super well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're
I
confident
totally relate to
in,
that.
and if you're
Yeah.
confident in that this is going really well, you're very happy, life is good to you, people don't like it because it also puts their situation on the spot. Like, am I happy with my situation? Am I happy with my job?
Hmm.
So it's easier for them to just remove me than to take a good look at their life.
No, and I 100% relate to that in so many different ways, because the same thing happens when you start on your healing journey. People don't like to be around you when you're getting better, because it makes
No.
them look at the stuff that they're sitting with, you know, and
Yes.
it's the same thing. And I think that has been what's made my healing journey and now my business journey feel very isolating and lonely, is that I have experienced the exact same thing. I thought that my biggest cheerleaders would be super expressive and happy and sharing and supporting. And it hasn't really been that way. And I really had to get okay with the fact that the people who are supporting me loudly and sharing me, those are the people that I want to continue to grow relationships with and water those
Mm,
gardens, if you will. And
mm,
that the other people, I don't take it personally with them because I know that it's inner stuff that's causing it. So I'm okay with some of those things falling away with the hope that maybe I'm a mirror for them in that way, and it will spark them to look at those things, and eventually they'll get there. And maybe they won't. We all have our own journeys, but it is
Probably not.
hard. And that's why I feel like I wish there were more women who would really stand in that worth and speak strongly and be authentically themselves. Because to your point, it's probably 90% because he's a man when it comes to business, right? But maybe it is an energetic thing, but that's just your energy and it's valid as it is. And I like that you still stand in it because a lot of times when we women can feel that it's not appreciated, we revert back to that smaller version of ourselves. And I just think it keeps everybody stuck. So as hard as it is, those of us who are able to deal with it, I almost feel like it's an obligation for me to be that strong. And that's just my personal experience. But,
I agree. And I think it is your obligation because so many people are looking at you.
yeah, 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 I agree totally. So that was actually something I want to talk about, what you mentioned with your husband where they refer to him, because that was a classic scenario the last few years I worked at the agency because I was in charge of all of our new business and all of our large accounts. And I was like the right-hand person for our managing director, CEO for the office.
Mm.
And we would go into so many meetings with Dell, IKEA, Coca-Cola, these huge clients, or new clients that we were pitching for. He knew absolute shit. Like he was there as an ornamental piece because they wanted to know that the leader was there, right? But the only thing he did was give me like approval on the numbers. Not to downplay what he did. Obviously, he had other stuff, but in this case, right? I was the one who was running everything. We would sit there. I would always sit in the middle because him and the creative director knew that I was the person who was running the meeting. So I'd be in the middle. And it would be hilarious to me so many times. I would be speaking to the people and then they would look at me while I was speaking, but then they would direct all their questions to the two other guys. And I'm like, I would literally I remember, I think it was with Aquador. We were with these two Southern European guys across from us. And I ran the whole meeting and everything. They kept asking questions to the creative director, asking questions to the managing director. I got so annoyed that at one point I started leaning in front of them to answer the question. I was like, I can answer that for you. You know what? Let me take that one. It was just like, but that's constantly there are some industries that are obviously worse than others. I feel like the advertising industry is extremely toxic. There's a lot of male toxic behaviors and cultures, at least in my experience. But it really drove me crazy. And now that you have your own company, you posted on LinkedIn how this still happens to you as a CEO. And you had mentioned that one specific incident where they asked when your boss was coming because they thought you were the intern, right?
Yeah. But it happens all the time. Like, one time I had a meeting and I had scheduled a meeting with someone, a guy, and he was like, this is my address. And I went there realizing that it was like a proper building for, I don't know what it's called, like apartment building with just apartments. And I'm like, hi, I'm downstairs, but it doesn't look like there's an office here. He's like, no, I'm working from home. You can come up. What the fuck? No, I'm not coming up. Are you serious? You would never do this to like a man that you wanted to impress. But you could do that to me, and I could just like, and also you're no, this is not gonna happen. I'm leaving. So I left. But I've also like I tried to earlier days. I tried to understand where this came from. Like this bias of turning to Seb instead of asking me. Sometimes I think it just has to do with energy. They just like that he's confident in everything. Sometimes it's also about men not wanting to say, I don't know. It's a thing that men tend to do. So I think that the people that were asked in your meeting, the example that you brought up, I don't think that they said, I don't know, ask Jess. I think that they started to wing it and like started to explain things. So it becomes a man talking to another man and the man is answering. It's not that they gave you this, like, no, it's a Jess thing.
No, but they did. They were, because they didn't know the answer.
Really?
Yeah, no, because they hadn't worked. I mean, unless it was a creative question, then the creative director could answer. If it was a finance question, then the managing director could answer. But all the questions in this case were directed on the proposal and, the RFP we were answering. So they didn't know because they didn't work on that. That was
But
all
did
my
they
work.
say
That was
then that like, I don't know? Ask Jess.
they would literally look and they'd be like, Jess, or they started looking at me. So, and it just kept going. I mean, also that meeting was just the perfect example of women not getting respect where deserved, and also not being part of the boys club. Because this is the other thing. I don't know if you experienced this in the agency, or maybe you didn't do this. This was back when I still was trying to like octopus my way into situations. I really adopted like a male way of being, which I think is extremely common in the corporate world, that even women in leadership have a lot of these like traditionally more male qualities because you kind of have to survive, right? I understand why it happens. And I had been doing that a lot. And in the advertising industry, there's a lot of inappropriateness because it's corporate, but it's not. Like, it's not at all. There's so many sexual jokes and things, and I was part of those. I even was maybe one of the worst people doing it because it really helped me to fit in. So I was constantly really pushing that side of myself. And in that meeting, I remember after the meeting, they took us to lunch in the canteen. And one of the guys, I think it was his partner, he just said like, "Oh, my partner is newly pregnant," or something. And the other guy was like, "Yeah, they had a lot of fun trying." And then the other guy was like, "Yeah, but it was only he was like, one try and we were done." And so, the guys are all like, "Ho ho ho." And so I went, "Well, I hope you got in more than one try." And they look at me and they were like, And then they just moved, and I was like, "Sorry, I'm not allowed to participate in the sex jokes. That's the guys thing. I got that. Sorry." But that's kind of, that was par for the course. That was how it always was.
But I also think that some men don't really feel comfortable in this either. But
No.
it's also expected.
Yeah.
That they partake, that they are part of this.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I mean, that's the thing is like, looking back on it, I was hyper sexualizing myself in most of my ad career because that was the thing that got me invited into the rooms, but it also simultaneously kept me stuck in a position because they didn't respect me enough to get above in any way. Like they didn't want to report to me, but I was good looking enough and I was okay with the sexual harassment and I even was part of it. So I was like safe in that way. But like my creative director, for example, like a lot of that stuff going on made him uncomfortable too, to your point. But
Yeah.
you have to play the game,
Yeah. No, I'm trying quite hard with our culture at Schmack because I don't want it to be that type of culture. I don't want to make sex jokes. I don't want the team to make fun of each other, if that makes sense. Because once you start to like make fun of each other, it's always someone that becomes kind of the object for the joke more than someone else, and they get offended, and it's just started to escalate. So we're very friendly at work. Very nice. No sex jokes.
Yeah.
No fuck you jokes. No like making fun of each other. But I've also noticed that it's not only is the patriarchal, structures, right? So it doesn't necessarily only need to be men. It can be women too. And I've noticed that a lot of women follow this, especially older women. I want to say I'm almost 40, but like 50, they don't want to speak to me. They don't want to talk to me. They don't want to have they don't trust me. I'm younger. I'm like a girl in their eyes. So it's not only men in that scenario that I need
I
to work
actually
with.
have experienced that with the exception of my last two female bosses where I went to actual like corporate. I went to a company versus advertising, which was a rude awakening for me to go from like all sex jokes and inappropriateness is expected and celebrated to like, you can't do that because you'll go to HR. It was a real shock. I had great bosses there, but to your point, there were some women who I struggled with in the sense that, and I don't know if you've experienced this, they had a very difficult time getting to where they were. And they, adopted a lot of, again, these male toxic traits to survive. And so when we're when we're as women asking for more female leaders in corporate, we're not asking for more female leaders that operate as if they're their male counterparts, because that doesn't change the culture, right? Like if we continuously are promoting and keeping people who carry those toxic traits and cultures, it doesn't change anything. The other thing was, I mean, I've literally heard some older women in these leadership training courses we have say like, well, that's the way that it was for me, and so everybody has to do with that. Or she has it easy. I had it so much harder. And it breeds this resentment. And it's something I really never understood from my perspective, because if I can make the environment better for the people that are coming up the ladder, why would you not want to do that? Why do you want me to suffer too because you had a hard time? But they also had a problem with me because of that, because I was younger, I had it easier. I didn't have
Yeah.
to do all these things. Did you
Easier.
experience
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I also noticed now, being a leader, that it is difficult to lead people with kind of female or feminine traits, if that makes sense. Because I love my job. Like, I started this because I love it. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
happy at work. I do things because I feel like it's fun. I do a lot of things based on, does this generate happiness? Is this fun? Is it engaging? Let's go. Um, it's a very non-objective trait. Like, I don't make the business decision based on, is this good for the business? Is this going to earn us more money? Is this going to give us more client contracts? It's more like, is this fun? Is it changing something? Is it challenging something? Let's go. So it's more on the female traits, if that makes sense, in terms of
Mm-hmm.
emotional decision making.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is that I'm also very happy at work. I love my work. People don't respect me as much as if I'm not there all the time. And when I speak to them, I'm very assertive, I'm very firm, I'm very manly,
Yeah. Yeah. Masculine about it.
masculine, because you also need to understand there's not only me as a leader, but it's all of their experience.
Mm-hmm.
From their parents to teachers to their old employees, where they have expected this from a man and this from a woman. So
Yeah.
myself, it's going to be very difficult for me to change this.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed
Yeah.
that people don't really feel comfortable either, because they just want to do a good job at work. The least they want to do is to navigate a very emotional leader, or leader that they don't really understand where she's going. So I need to take a lot of the
Mm.
masculine traits into my leadership to make sure that they also feel comfortable.
Yeah. I think you mentioned the leader who's not very emotional, and I understand what you mean there. I think my experience with that has been, I think people misunderstand the emotional part when it comes to women and men, because men are emotional. It's just different emotions than what they expect from women, right?
100%.
So, the anger, I mean, I had a very emotional male boss at one time. It was just the more like typically considered masculine emotions,
Yeah.
whereas they expect women to be like, oh, she's going to cry over stuff. And at the end of the day, I also was like, if somebody cries over something, it just means that they're human and they care about it, or something happened. Like, why is anger okay, but emotional, crying is not okay? And I think I 100% agree with you. Like, it's not something that's going to change in one generation, where they're like, this is great. So you do have to balance the fact that you have to be a leader and you have so many people you're responsible for. But I think it's really great the way that you're doing it. I mean, how do you approach leading people who you say have less respect for you? How do you handle that?
I need to adjust. I need to adapt. So if I have someone that don't really trust me as a leader, I just need to be very assertive in what my expectations is or are. This is what I expect from you. Do you agree with that these are your KPIs? Do you agree that this is what I should expect from you? You don't need to respect me, because I've had this, like, people that come into my business. I'm the founder. I created this. I don't have anyone else owning this except for my husband. So there's no money coming from anywhere else, which means that they should, by nature, respect me. But it's not always the case, because I'm happy. I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Yeah, I'm down with this. So I need to step back and be like, okay, you don't need to respect me, but this is your job. So you need to respect, this is the role description that you have agreed to. Do you understand that this could be expected? Yes. So it's all, I need to go back to basics and go back to the decisions and objectiveness of things, and not necessarily you don't respect me, because that is a bit fluid. It's a bit subjective. Where does the line
Yeah.
of respect go? So I
Yeah.
just ignore that they don't respect me, and it's fine. It's not
Honestly think
my.
that's the way to go. But
But
this is
it was very difficult in the beginning, because I thought that if I created a business, I created it all by myself, you would earn respect.
yeah,
But
but
no.
that's a validation and
Yeah, yeah.
ego-based thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's, for me, one of the things I'm constantly preaching to people I coach is like, you can love what you do at work. You can be passionate about what you do for work, whether it's working for someone or owning a business or whatever. That's the goal, right? Like, you want to be passionate and love what you do. But especially when you're working for a company, you need to separate your job from who you are as a person. I've had so many bosses who were really driven, less so even by if you actually do your job and do it well, but it was more, do you respect me? Do you make me feel? Do you stroke my ego? Do you make me feel
Mhm.
good? I don't have to respect someone to work for them, but it definitely helps me feel more committed to the work that I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know, if I respect someone, the main reason I left my corporate job was because there was such a dissonance a cognitive dissonance between my values and the values of the company that were just lip service and how they were actually operating. So I was very good at my job, but that wasn't enough for me. Whereas for my boss in that case, it needed to be both.
Yeah.
That I wasn't,
Yeah.
because I had separated. I was like, I will work here. I will do my job really well. I'm not going to do any, I take pride in the work I do. I'm not going to, but I'm not going to do this monkey dance stuff of joking around and, pretending like everything's fine and we're best friends. We're clearly not. This is a separation. And I think it's really smart what you're doing with the KPIs, because at the end of the day, that's why you hire someone, is for those things, not if they're going to, make you feel good. Or obviously there's a difference between respecting someone and outwardly being not nice to them.
Disrespectful.
And when you're in that toxic environment, the only way to get respect is, for lack of a better word, to be that bitch. Like, I used to put on heels and clomp down to my boss's office so he could hear me coming in my heels, because that walk that I had, that intimidated him because it sounded like I meant business. So I literally had a heel cabinet behind my desk. And when I needed to go yell at him about something, I would put my heels on. I would clomp my ass down there and I would say what I needed to be said. But that was what, for him, made him feel like, oh shit, she's coming, or you would have to be hardline about stuff on situations I didn't necessarily want to be. That wasn't me, that wasn't who I was. It was very hard for me in the corporate years because I had to mask a lot, because I am a ridiculously silly, jokey, nonsensical person, and that doesn't jive so well with. I love that you do that as the founder. You're just like, this is who I am. I want to have fun. I mean, not a lot of businesses go, I want to do this because I think it's great and it's changing something, or it's, doing something cool, and not because it's just going to make us more money. Like, in this day and age, everything is like, this isn't necessarily great for us. The people aren't happy about it, but we're going to get $500 extra, so we're going to do it.
Yeah, but I think that that's so boring. Like, then
Yeah, totally.
you can then you can start to work at our old agency, or like sign a contract with them as a client, because they're not going to move mountains, because they're not doing it because it's fun or they're passionate about doing new
No,
things.
they're doing it for shareholder value.
Yeah, and I believe that this is the only way to do business in like 2025. Like, I want the best people on the planet. And I see that Gen Zs, they're not like, either they want to go with a very, very stable corporate job, or they want to fulfill something. And the people that want to fulfill something, they want to change something, they want to improve, they want to change who they are. Those are the people that I want.
Yeah,
Because tech
they're
is
the
going so
change
fast.
makers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tech is going so fast. Like, ChatGPT wasn't a thing 2 years ago. And now,
Mm-hmm.
ta-da, it's changing
Mm-hmm.
everything. And assuming that tech is not going to stop, I need people that are adapting fast and want to learn things. I cannot afford having someone that is just like, nah, don't like the new tech, not
Mm-hmm.
interested.
I think that's where I ran into issues with corporate, and I think it's a valid point again, to why you don't necessarily need someone who respects you as long as they're not disrespectful. Because the people who are like that, who want to expand, who want to grow, who want to do amazing things, they don't have these stagnant mindsets where they're just like, I'm okay with whatever you tell me. Not that there's anything
Mm.
wrong with this. It's a different way of thinking. But there are people who are like, I'm happy enough in this position. I just want to clock in and clock out, and that's it. And you tell me what you want me to do. I don't care about your values. This is just a job in that way to me, and that's it. That's totally fine. But those people are not the people that you talked about. It's not who I am. Like, I'm going to say something if I don't think it's the right thing to do. And when you have these leaders who are like, I need your respect, that's how I want you to operate. They can't take that feedback. They can't take that and be like, you know what, we could make it a lot better. It's just, no, this is what we're doing because I said so.
Yeah. And that's the thing though, because I'm learning so much. By hiring the best people on the planet, they're challenging me. So I become better. So it's kind of a part of the whole culture instead of me just saying, we're going this way. And the whole team is like, I don't think so. Like, we have the boots on the ground. We see what is happening. We don't believe in this. And I'm like, fuck you. Let's go this way. It doesn't make any sense.
What's the point?
Yeah.
I love that so much.
But I've also noticed, like, based on this, the way that I lead people and the way that I want to change the way that business has been done. I see when I do interviews, I talk about different types of entrepreneurs. So we have the Spanx founder. She created something that was totally unique. It didn't exist. Or you have the Spotifys and the Ubers. And I understand that music was available before, but Spotify just made something better. And Uber was the same. Taxis, you could get a cab before Uber, but they just made it better, the experience better. And that is what I want to create. Ad agencies does exist, but they're not as good as we are. So based on this, I want to hire good people. And you would think that the best people are given that women or young women have the best grades from school, from university. They are more committed than men in work in general, but young women tend to not thrive in this environment because they have gotten so used to getting confirmation all the time. You're doing good job, good job, good job.
Good girl syndrome.
So I've started this project called Good Girl Paradox, where I want this to be removed because I noticed that they look at what we're doing and they can meet at me in interviews and be like, this would be so much fun. Nah, I'm going to go with this corporate thing, or I'm going to start at Accenture or whatever. I'm staying where I am because they're so afraid of doing something where they don't get this confirmation all the time about how good they are. And the square that they have previously been excellent in, the square that I'm putting out for them is a bit blurry. Like, the square isn't super clear because maybe it will change. Maybe you need to do this. Maybe you need to pivot. And that gives them cold feet.
I cannot love this more. This is a perfect intersection of like what you're talking about and what my Roman Empire, because I had the same thing. Like, I had very, very low self-worth, as a lot of women do. And that's a lot where that validation comes from, because you don't have any internal sense of steering, validation, confidence. So you have to get everything from the outside. So exactly to your point, you end up being led wherever you're going to get that security, whether that's bad relationships, whether that's bad jobs that don't actually help you thrive, whether it's just not doing things like taking these big steps that are a little scary, but actually are going to be really fulfilling. That's a lot of the work that I do, because they have to get rid of these external validations by raising self-worth and being able to use their own internal compass and guide to be like, I can do this. This is amazing. I don't need anyone to tell me I'm doing a good job, because I'm proud of what I'm doing and I think it's great. So what is the good girl paradox thing you're doing? What are you working with it?
I'm doing TikTok and courses. So TikTok is very much just talking about these are and because it goes very much into controlling everything. A lot of these women tend to want to control the environment that they're in, because once they are in control of everything, they can't fail. Because the worst possible thing that can happen is that they fail. So they lose.
That's a
all
huge
of this.
false belief, but yeah.
I know. But that means that if they are working in an environment, usually it's a man, that are having like 20 women, young women underneath him, they almost like compete over the person who knows him the best, who knows the next decision that he's going to make, so they can perform as good as possible. So they get validated as soon as possible or as fast as possible. And I think that this is also how they perform at home. They want to be the best mother. They want to be the best girlfriend. They want to be the best friend. They want to be the best daughter. So they call their parents all the time and just like get validation of how good they are and have a good relationship they are. So I'm starting to work with control. Like, you don't need to control everything, because once you lose control, or when you let go of the control, life kind of starts to happen. I make the example of, if someone gives you a trip somewhere, like, you're not allowed to know where you're going. You're just getting a few points. Most women feels like this is the worst possible birthday gift ever, because it means that they cannot control what they're going to look like. They can't control where they're going. They can't control how they're going to get there. They can't control the hotel, like all of these things. But it's just because they're so afraid of failure
Mm-hmm.
that they want to control everything. Because maybe they end up in this location and they don't look good, or they don't feel good, or they chose the wrong outfit or whatever.
Or they plan the partner plans the wrong things, and then they don't have a good experience because they weren't involved in that, and their expectations are already too high. So
Yeah.
then, of course, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And
Yeah. And then the partner decided that they're going, I don't know, skiing somewhere, and they don't feel comfortable in skiing. He knows this, or she knows this. Like, all of these things is creating shackles that I don't think that they are aware of.
Mm.
So I want women to get back in control of themselves more and be like, okay, I stand my ground. I can put myself in any type of situation, any type of job, and I will make it happen. It's fine. I trust myself, because I think it is a very strong part of them that they don't trust themselves.
Yeah, and that's a lot that I work with. So the way I work with women on that is a lot of nervous system regulation, because for most of us, this happens from years and years and years and years and years of conditioning or relationships, trauma, doing the same repeated patterns. And your nervous system doesn't know the difference between making a small decision and making a big decision. It just sees everything as a threat, right? And then there's also, like you were saying, these false beliefs that we hold on to that we don't even know we have, and they just live in our subconscious, but they rule everything that we do. So to your point, like, they come in for an interview with you, everything in them is buzzing. Their soul is like, yes, this is amazing. But then the subconscious kicks in and it's like, this is scary. This is unknown. We don't know if we can do this. What if we fail? Everybody's going to think we're a failure. This is not good. You know what? We should go with the safe option, where we can just ride the middle lane, always get confirmation of how we're doing, not have to go outside our comfort zone. So that's the two. And then, yeah, a lot of it is also spiritual. Well, depending on how spiritual a person is, but I think that spirituality in a lot of places is very good. So I always recommend some level of it, whether it's just meditation or, you know, or,
I agree.
something else. But do you have so you're doing videos right now. Do you actually do like programs for women, or is there a place that I can put in the show
Yes.
notes for people?
Yes, I'm working on it, so you will get it.
Okay. Yay.
I think it's extremely important.
I
So
do
it's
too.
a
I think
passion
I mean,
project.
I love that. I think if we want the changes that I had always been hoping for in corporate, and still hope in case my daughters decide they want to go into business or anything really, but I think then we have to all work on it. We have to all make those changes in ourselves in order for it to change everything, because more women are being promoted to leadership to a degree, which is great, but if we continue to keep the environments in the companies that are not good for the type of leaders we should be having that change that environment, then they're just going to either have to adapt to the environment and it's going to stay the same, or they're going to leave. And most of my corporate jobs, what we saw was that they left. They didn't want to keep doing it. I mean, I was in one call, I kid you not, this was the worst example. I was the only woman in a call with 4 other male leaders. I was the one leading the call. I was on the first slide. I just had the agenda points. And one of the men decided to have a discussion about one of the agenda points. And I managed to say very quickly, like, if we could just hold the discussion until we get to that area, I think that I'll be able to explain it. And they didn't listen at all. So they just kept talking over each other constantly while I decided to do an experiment, because I had always been the type of person who's just like, you know what, I'll just muscle my way in. I don't need to wait in the wings and be timid. Like, I'm not that person. So normally I would have just been like, hey, guys, stop it, you know? But I was like, no, I want to just do a little experiment here. So I raised my hand like you can do in Teams. I just raised my hand to say that I had something to say. And I waited to see when they would let me speak. They continued to talk over each other. Almost every single time they would end with, Jess, I can see you have your hand raised. Just let me finish this thought. And then someone would talk over them. And they kept doing it for 30 fucking minutes until I finally said, okay, listen, this clearly is not working. I could have answered your question in the first 2 minutes. I wanted to wait until we got there. And this is ridiculous. Now we've lost half an hour of an hour meeting. We're never going to get through all this. And I have to schedule another meeting. And they all felt properly chagrined. But afterwards, my boss, who was in the meeting, I said, this is ridiculous. This is the kind of culture I'm trying to tell you about. That's not okay. Women do not get a voice at the table here, and you don't respect us. And he goes, yeah, but you just got to fit in. You just got to elbow your way in. I was like, that is the wrong way to look at it. I should not have to match your ridiculous ethic, the way that meeting etiquette, in order to be able to be heard. But these kind of change, these are the people that you have setting the culture. So until that changes, it is going to continue. But exactly what you're saying with this, good girl paradox program that you're doing, if you don't feel strong enough in yourself and validated enough in yourself, you're never going to be able to help change that, because you won't take on leadership positions in places where you actually have influence. And you also won't speak back to people who honestly need to be spoken back to, but you won't, because they're your source of validation.
Yes.
So you can't bite the hand that feeds, as they say.
100%.
All right, listen, I really want to talk to you about how psilocybin made you a better leader. Can you tell me about this experience? Because I am a very big advocate for what some of these nature's medicines can do for people in terms of, I like them for therapy. I've never tried them in terms of leadership. So this is very interesting, and I would love to hear more.
And I don't think that I went there to become better in my leadership, but as a validation addict, I had a lot of problem with control. Like, I wanted to control everything, and starting a business is difficult. But you can maintain control if you have like 3 people. When you have 5, it's starting to become a bit stressful, having control over what everyone is doing, all the client deliverables, everything that we're saying to the client, all the messages that we're sending is starting to like get out of hand. And then, 6 people, 7 people, 10 people, like you're break. I was starting to break because I realized that this agency is representing me, and I wanted me to be the best possible self every time. So every message, every deliverable, everything that anyone did at this agency represented me. Obviously, it should be perfect.
Mm.
I heard about one guy. So this is very big in like entrepreneurship and very successful entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
that they do psilocybin to kind
Mm-hmm.
of expand their way of making business decisions, defining what they believe in, like finding their voice. And it's also, I didn't know. I'm not a drug person. I started drinking when I was 19. So I never really got into the whole drug thing.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone like, yeah, I've done mushrooms. Okay. Okay. And then I got into it and looked it up, realizing that, wow, this is a thing. People do this to become better and expand their consciousness and understanding, get a distance from their ego. Because again, the whole control thing is an ego thing. So you kind of cut yourself away from the ego, look at the ego from a distance, seeing, okay, this is the ego feeding on things. So there's a company, they are psychologists who started this business, and they have trips going down to Netherlands for self-development. And a part of that is doing psilocybin. You go on 2 trips during that 4-day retreat.
Mm-hmm.
One is a bit shorter and one is a bit longer and more. And the idea is for you to go deep. So it's no microdosing. It's
Yeah, it's like a holy moly situation.
Mm.
Okay.
And you have people there supporting you throughout
Mhm.
your kind of trip. It was, I think it was 6 women, 6 men, and I think it was like 10 people supporting during that time. Yeah. The trip itself was very special. But when I got back, I was very empty inside. I didn't really know what this meant. There's a part of after psilocybin or after you're doing these deep trips called integration, where you need to kind of integrate into the new you or the new reflections. And the psychologist said that you have all of this knowledge that you take away from the retreat. See it as sand. You have all of this sand. But then at the end, you will probably just have one piece of like sand. I don't know what it's called, like a part
Yeah,
of
grain
the
of
sand,
sand. Yeah.
grain of sand left.
Yeah.
And that is the most important part. So don't try to keep up everything else, understanding everything else, and make that a part of you, but just trust the process. And I did. And I don't necessarily know exactly how it worked, but my ego, I don't care that much about control anymore. It's fine. Things happen and it's fine. I was in an argument with my husband. And again, going back to control, it was this I couldn't really show my weaknesses to anyone, not even him. So we had an argument, and I was like, oh my God, this is an argument I'm doing on autopilot. I just need to figure out why I'm doing this.
Mhm.
Going back to like, why am I even having this conversation? Because I think that he was like, yeah, you're not as good as you think here. You need to change. You need to become better. And I'm like, you cannot say that to me. Like, I understand that I need to become better. You cannot say that because that means that you know, and that means that
Mhm.
you can probably leave me. Oh my God, do I have a fear that you're gonna leave me? And then I realized, like, no, I don't really. But it's something that is inherited. Like, it's something that my dad did, my mom did, my grandma did. So this is just something that I'm brought up, realizing that wow, they were afraid of being left. But maybe I'm not, but I'm just doing this on autopilot. So all of these things have been happening during this. I did it in April last year, 2024. Yeah. And all these new like experiences, it's almost like I see before my life was in 2D, now it's in 3D. And I'm so much happier. And I don't think that I would ever get pregnant if I didn't do this because it a lot of control, a lot of stress. I'm a new type of person,
Mm. Yeah.
much
That
more
was
tolerant.
that was my experience. I mean, I went to a very liberal school
Mm.
where there were quite a lot of drugs when I was in high school, and I was very scared of them for many reasons. One was I was on scholarship, and so I really had to keep my grades up, but I couldn't get kicked out of the school. So I was very scared for anything to happen. But I remember there was a period where the kids did a lot of mushrooms, and all the stories I heard were like horror stories about these horrible trips they had. And I was like, why would you keep doing this? It's horrible. And I carried this like super big fear about it. And when I started doing the healing, I had a similar experience where for me, I am very spiritual, and I believe that we get signs and synchronicities and guidance throughout us. So throughout our time, right? And it started out of nowhere, kind of coming up again, but specifically around the therapeutic uses, not even microdosing, just having these therapeutic sessions with facilitators. And it kind of started to make me a little bit more curious of why it was coming up so often for me from random people, random news articles, recommended documentaries from Netflix. And it kind of was like a light bulb came on of like, maybe I should look into this because I was really struggling with some very deep things at that time that I was having some problems letting go of. And I looked into it. I watched a whole documentary about psilocybin research that was done in the 70s and kind of how effective it was for people with trauma and PTSD and a lot of these, anxiety and things like, and I have always struggled with a lot of internalized anxiety. And I got curiouser and curiouser about it. And I ended up doing a therapeutic trip, and I had the almost exact same experience. It was like it blew an internal door wide open, and I could see myself in a completely different view, and I could realize, in my belief system, things I was holding on to from either past lives or from ancestral trauma, like you were saying your mom, but it was like my whole mom's line holding on to stuff that I was still carrying with me that I shouldn't be carrying. It was ways of looking at my past that I realized I shouldn't be looking at it in that way. It also opened up like a huge spiritual door for me. And I really feel like it was like 4 years of therapy in like a day.
100%. I'm like, either you do therapy for the rest of your life or you do this.
I honestly feel like you could do therapy for the rest of your life and never get to where that was, because I 100% preach embodiment. Like, you have to believe and live and feel the change that you want. And there was something about the psilocybin that I could feel and see myself as this version. Like, I was feeling very disempowered going in, and middle of the journey, I was like, I remember being like, I am so fucking powerful. I have so much power. Why am I acting like I'm this weak little thing who has to just go with what I'm told? I am fucking fierce. I was like, I'm borderline scared of myself with how much power that's inside of me that I'm just not putting out there. And that embodiment changed everything for me. It was like from, the integration time, 100%. It is so important because there's so many things that come in and you're like, it is like sifting through like what was the mushrooms, what was actually,
Yeah,
what is
yeah.
actually the therapeutic part of this. But that integration period, like, it does feel not heavier, but there is a void almost of like, what are you
Mm,
going to carry with you?
yeah.
What are you leaving behind? Like, what are you going to integrate into you? But that period was where a lot of stuff changed for me. I honestly think it should probably be legal for therapeutic uses in everywhere, because then once I went through it and I talked to other people who had been through it, no one that I've talked to who's been through it has not had an absolutely life-changing transformational experience in the best way possible. I mean, I've still heard stories of people not having a great experience, but what I've kind of understood from talking with some of the people who have more experience with it is that when you go with what the medicine wants you to understand, when you open up to that and just are in the experience and experience it, it goes. But when you're fighting, when your ego is fighting to hold on, to not go with it, to not hear what you need to hear or feel what you need to feel, that's when it can kind of feel super scary and out of control and wrong, because you're not giving yourself over to the medicine.
Yeah. And it was one thing that happened during this retreat that was it also a part of the reason why I created this good girl paradox. It is this woman who she's a control freak. Why she went on this retreat, no one knows. But she had a lot of trauma with her mother. So she wanted to uncover that. And all of her friends has been doing this. So she's like, yeah, I'm going to try it out. What is she, like 50 something? And she held on so much during this trip. So everyone got more if they wanted to. And she got a lot of psilocybin. She got more than they've ever given anyone. But she held on. She didn't want to let go. So she never, ever opened what she was supposed to open. So she was just like, her brain was so strong. And I'm impressed that she was this strong. She was like, I'm not letting go. I'm not letting go. I'm not letting go, because what will happen if I let go?
Mm, mm,
So she was just 2 trips and she was just holding on. She was like, yeah, mushrooms got nothing on me. And I'm like, it's not really the mushrooms. It's your brain who's like pushing not to let go and not to lose
yeah.
control.
Also,
It
that's
was
not the
very
flex you
impressive.
think it is. Like, why did you come here?
Why did you pay money to do this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
it was very interesting.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I mean, to some degree, we all struggle with letting go, right? And that was one of the main things that really took me a long time until I felt, okay, I'm ready to try this, and see if it works. It took me a long time because I had the exact same feelings of like, I'm really scared of losing control. I don't want to lose control. The one thing, if anyone's listening, and this is the same things that they're thinking this would be therapeutic for them, but they're scared of it. The one thing I loved about it was that, with drinking, once you're out of control, you're out of control, and like, it's gone. You're done. But with psilocybin, you can pull yourself in and out. So if you let yourself sit with it and unfocus and just almost like that meditative be with it state, then they're working with you. But like, when I had to go pee, I was like, all right, I gotta go pee. And then it's almost like you suck yourself out and then you're a little bit wobbly, but like you're okay. You could go to the bathroom. Like you do still maintain a level of control. The thing you do is you just open yourself up to the information that needs to be shared with you. So yeah, I definitely think I know that it's extremely helpful for people with anxiety from a microdosing standpoint. But again, that's, not legal in most places. But I do think these therapeutic situations, if you've been going to therapy for a long time and you haven't been able to, I don't want to say up level, but you haven't been able to let go whatever you're working on, or you want a alternative to therapy, because for a lot of people as well, like there might be stuff they know they need to work on, but talking to somebody about it is the actually terrifying part. You don't have to talk to anybody with the psilocybin. The psilocybin will talk to you,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes it could be a really, really good trip. It can show you how happy you could be if you just let things go. Or you will have a difficult trip,
Yeah.
but
I
it's
think
your
the
trip.
medicine shows you what you need to deal with at that moment, So if you are having a really heavy time, I know there was some people who were really worried about, I don't feel like I feel really heavy right now. I feel like there's a lot of heavy stuff I'm working on. I'm scared that that's going to come through. They didn't have that experience. They had something that they didn't really think that they would have. It was like a completely different thing. So I do feel because I believe that there's a spiritual, I feel like they are medicine. It's spiritual. I feel like the universe never gives you anything that you can't handle. So I feel like whatever comes up is what you need to come up with in your ability to handle that thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, you definitely have to want to work with it, or you're going to make it harder than it needs to be.
Yeah, they said you're not going to get the trip that you want. You're going to get the trip that you need.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
inspired my mom to do this.
Lovely.
So it's very nice because we've gotten a totally new relationship after this. But she got molested. Is that a word?
She got what?
Raped when she was molested and raped when
Molested.
she
Yeah.
was, when she was, I think 6 or 7, when she was very, very young.
Mm.
And she thought that she was done with it. Like she thought that like I've been gone to therapy, like everything is fine. This trip is gonna be very, very more fun, happy times. But she wasn't done. She wasn't done with this whole um trauma that happened when she was younger. So she was
Mm.
forced to go through it again and see it from an older person. And saw herself as this grown up person helping herself when she was younger. And she has been struggling with integration, but she's like, I've done therapy for all my life almost after this. But this is the actual pivotal thing that has happened because now I understand that I built so many walls around me. But this is like, I'm open now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's very interesting to see. Yeah.
I think it's amazing that you did that. And I think it's amazing that you're open about it too, because it's still something that maybe is a little bit more like taboo, obviously, because it is an illegal substance. But let's not pretend that there's a lot of illegal substances happening at all times in business anyway. So it's just what's your poison
Yeah. I
kind of.
mean, I don't eat sugar, I don't drink alcohol. So it's like, this is my way of compensating.
You have to do something, right?
I had to do
Thanks so
something.
much for being on today, Anna. The one last thing I wanted to ask you is there a particular like lesson or anything that you would give as advice to your younger self that's been very important to you now?
Yeah. I think just trust yourself that you will figure it out. And I think that that is a very cliche thing, but it's true. Like, trust the process.
Yeah. I literally tell myself, I was telling myself that earlier today. Like, I feel like I held a lot of fear of like, I don't know how to do this. I mean, I've always been the type of person though that I'm like, I don't know how to do this. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna figure it out. But I still hold that fear of like, I don't know how to do this. But I constantly
Yeah.
remind myself of like, bitch, you always figure it out and it's fine. Stop worrying about it. You're gonna figure it out or you're not. But no matter what happens, it's gonna be fine.
Yeah. I was
It's
scared
totally
about this
fine.
podcast.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
You
one
did
and a
great.
half hours. Thank you. 1.5 hours. What does that mean? Do I need to deliver something? Like, what is the end goal? What is the definition of done? Like, all of these, like, old validation things
Yeah.
came up.
Yeah.
But it's also putting myself in a situation where I'm like, I'm not super comfortable, but let's go.
Yeah. But that's the best place to be, because now you did it. You did a great job. And now there's
Thank
going to come
you.
another opportunity where someone's going to be like, oh, hey, you want to do a podcast? And it's going to be someone bigger who has more than 30 followers. And then you're going to actually have like a bigger platform.
30,000 followers. It's
You
all
were
about
like,
manifestation.
yeah, exactly. This was your warm up, you know?
Yeah.
This is totally fine. Yeah.
This was very fun.
Thank you. Even the like, the thing you said, running a business is really hard. And I literally have never expanded or grown more than I have in the past. I technically took the summer off. So I started again in August and it's 13th of September. Like, I have to remind myself, Jess, you just started in August, because I'm like, oh my God, I haven't done anything and nothing's really happening. And I have to learn all these new things. Like, the amount of programs, software, processes, that I've learned and been through and experimented with, and I got okay with not being perfect. I got okay with being seen. I got okay with saying things that, might not be agreeable to everybody. Like, the amount of growth I've had in this period is insane. So
Yeah.
I'm always like, even though it's scary, that's the best place to be if you want to be a kind of person who's continuously growing and expanding, because it's where you're going to do it,
Yeah.
and your fears get
100%.
quieter.
Yeah. It's a muscle.
Exactly. It's a muscle. Exposure therapy
Thing.
is my favorite way to do things.
Yes.
It's not for everybody, but I freaking love exposure therapy. It's like every time you do it, it gets less scary and you get more confidence in yourself. I think what you're doing is amazing. I wish you so much luck on the business and on the good girl paradox stuff. Follow Anna. Check her stuff out. She's amazing. Check out her company, Schmack. And thank everybody for listening today. And I will talk to you again probably later in the week when I do my not so mini solo episodes.